So, ladies and gentlemen, now we're looking at straight away Goodwill, and I would want us to look at just a few past paper questions and address ourselves on this concept of what here? Goodwill computation. How do we compute Goodwill? How do we compute Goodwill? Remember what we said in our last class? It's all about which method is being used. If it's the full method, I look at the purchase consideration paid by the parent. If it's full method, I add consideration paid by NCI, who, of course, you'll be told what their fair value of NCI's shares were worth at the acquisition date, and then you less the net asset. So, ladies and gentlemen, I would want us to look at December 2021, question number 1. December 2021, question number 1, just the Goodwill aspect. December 2021, question number 1. Once you get it, could you kindly put your thumbs up? Kindly put your thumbs up. December 2021, December 2021, question number 1. December 2021, question number 1. Once you get it, could you kindly put your thumbs up like this? December 2021, question number 1. December 2021, question number 1, advanced financial reporting. Once you get the paper, could you kindly put your thumbs up? Like I can see Umi Mwakio saying, hey, yes, thank you very much. So then this question, just go to the required. They want us to calculate the goodwill arising on acquisition. Goodwill arising on acquisition of the investment in the subsidiaries, of the investment in the subsidiaries, of the investment in the subsidiaries. And then part B, gain or loss arising on disposal of the investment in Dafu Limited as reported in. I don't want us to look at part B, only part A today, only part A today. All right. So, and of course, as you do a revision, would really recommend that you buy these particular books. You need to buy these particular books, right? You order them from us and we shall be able to deliver at Kenya shillings what year? 1,000. At Kenya shillings 1,000. Then straight away you have a great books. Of course, if you would want to place your order, don't forget our usual number. Our usual number is 0719 525,000. Great. So then we are told here, Pareto Limited is the holding company of a listed group of companies with its year end 30th June 2021. Pareto Limited has made a number of acquisitions and a disposal of an investment. It has acquired and disposed some investment there. The following summarized draft statements of financial position relate to the group companies for the year ended 30th June 2021. So I can see they have given me assets and current assets. We have property, plant, and equipment. We have two major investments, the investments in Pamba Limited and investments in Dafu Limited. And then we have some financial assets. Now look at the additional information. On 1st October 2020, Pareto Limited acquired an 80% equity interest in Pamba Limited when its retained earnings stood at 3,500. The purchase consideration comprised 1,250 million of Pareto Limited shares with a nominal value of shillings 1 each and a market price of 6.8 each. 6.8 each. Thank you. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I would want us to stop a little bit there and think loudly, really, what are these guys telling us? I would want us to look at, from note number 1, how is the group structure? How is the group structure? How is the group structure here, really? So we are told we have a company called who? Called Pareto, which has acquired a company called Pamba. not 100% of it, but just 80%. You see, 80% is so significant. 80% is so huge. It's more than 50%. Then that speaks to us the concept of Pamba being who? A subsidiary. Pamba is what here? Somebody is a subsidiary. Pamba is a subsidiary. It's more than 50%. This controlling interest. So Pamba is a subsidiary. Now listen and listen to me very well. If Pamba is a subsidiary, then what I need to do straight away, even without really going very, very far, to look at the other one called Dafu. Look at the other one called Dafu, although you can just read about Dafu as well. So like now note 5, I mean, we have here Pamba Limited that acquired 100% equity interest in Dafu Limited a number of years ago, where its retained earnings amounted to 1750. So in this case here, we are told that Pareto also went ahead and acquired another company called Dafu. This time around, it's a full acquisition, 100% acquisition, 100% acquisition, 100% acquisition. Now, this is the company structure. This is very important to me because now I know, like last semester we dealt with how many subsidiaries? 2 subsidiaries. So I have 2 subsidiaries. So don't worry about this. Then the next thing that I will do, I would want to come and calculate for Pamba and Dafu, these subsidiaries of mine. I would want to know how do their net assets look like. So we go straight away the next step, which is the step of evaluating the net assets of who? The net assets of the subsidiaries, net assets of the sub. So remember, net assets of the subsidiaries, you have to pick them like one at a time. And we shall start with a company, in this case here called who? This company called Pamba. We shall start with Pamba. We start with Pamba. And remember, when you are getting net assets, ladies and gentlemen, basically, you look at net assets at acquisition, when you acquired this subsidiary, and the net assets at what year? At reporting. Net assets are reporting. This is so important to us. Net assets at acquisition and net assets at reporting. Now, ladies and gentlemen, please remind ourselves here. When we talk of net assets, of course, we always think about what we call equity. Equity component. This is how you reason. Equity components. Is there anybody who can remind us here the equity components that you guys can never forget? Anybody who is able to remind us the equity components that you can never forget, even if they wake? Of course, I'm so sure like now there must be somebody there who is very sleepy. There must be somebody there who is trying to hold their eyes with pegs for them to remain wide open right now. But I'm so sure, even in the midst of that being that sleepy, I'm so sure that, yes, guys are able to remember. Yes, thank you very much. Ordinary share capital, yes. So we have here ordinary share capital, I've seen somebody mention there share premium. I've seen somebody mention there retained what year? Earnings, retained earnings. And please never forget the fair value adjustments. So we have here fair value adjustments. And then later on, of course, depending on the assets, depending on the assets being revalued, we will be introducing what we call depreciation of fair value adjustments. Depreciation of fair value adjustments. We shall be introducing that, but later on. So like now here for Pamba Limited, what have they told us for Pamba Limited? If you look at the financial statements published here, then you will be able to see, ladies and gentlemen, the equity of Dafu, not Dafu, but Pamba. Pamba. Is there somebody who is able to see the equity, especially the ordinary share capital of Pamba? Ordinary share capital of Pamba. Is there somebody who will be able to see this and give us the figure? Ordinary share capital of Pamba. Ordinary share capital of Pamba. Are you able to see that? Ordinary share capital of Pamba, 2,500, yes. So remember, this is at financial statements being reported. So this is at reporting. So the ordinary share capital at reporting of Pamba 2,500. How about share premium of Pamba? Share premium of Pamba Limited at the financial statements reporting date, I can see it is 1,000. It is 1,000. Retained earnings at reporting of Pamba, retained earnings we have there, 5,250. 5,250. 5,250. So, ladies and gentlemen, let's read note number one. Note number one. On 1st October 2020, Pareto Limited acquired an 80% equity interest in Pamba Limited. When its retained earnings stood at 3,500, retained earnings on the very date of acquisition. On the very date of acquisition, retained earnings here were 3,500. Retained earnings at acquisition, 3,500. Very important for us. Very important for us. Okay. Purchase consideration that will be used later. So they're telling us there, still on note number one, but paragraph number 2, that at acquisition of Pamba Limited, the only adjustment required to the identifiable net assets of Pamba Limited was for land, which had a carrying amount of 625 million less than its fair value. Less than its fair value. So in this case here, we can see that there is an adjustment. There's a value adjustment. There is a fair value adjustment. A fair value adjustment over how much? Of 625. Of 625. At which date? At acquisition date. So we have a 625. But now there is something there that confuses my students quite a lot. And that is why some of them end up failing in this particular paper. So this 625. It's a revaluation. It is a revaluation. But now the question that I would want to put forth to you here, is this a revaluation upwards or a revaluation downwards? Is it a revaluation upwards or a revaluation downwards? Could you kindly guide me? I stand to be guided really here. Is it a revaluation upwards or a revaluation downwards? According to your understanding, because if it's upwards, I shall leave it as a positive. It's a revaluation downwards, then I should be able to do what here to subtract. Is it a revaluation upwards or a revaluation downwards? Be honest, be yourselves here. Be yourselves here. Remember, when the market value is higher, market value is the same as fair value. When the market or fair value is higher, then we revalue up. We revalue up. So according to your understanding in this question, is the fair value higher or less? Which one of the above is correct? Is the fair value higher? Fair value. I'm talking of fair value. Is the fair value higher or below? Godfrey Mwangi says less. Fair value. The fair value, the fair value, the fair value. Just read the whole of it. Read the whole of it nicely. Read the whole of it nicely. You must read the whole of it nicely for you to understand. We have got book value and we have got fair value. Which one is bigger than the other? Which one is bigger than the other? Which one is bigger? Which one is bigger? According to your understanding. Fair value, according to Akio, it's fair value. It's fair value, which is big according to Umi. Fair value is more. Fair value is more. Fair value is higher. Fair value is higher. Fair value is higher. I'm being told there. Fair value is higher. Let's read this thing together. Let's read this thing together. You know, carrying amount is the same as book value. Carrying amount is the same as book value. So we have here carrying amount, carrying amount, carrying amount, and the book value, these are the same. And the book value, these are the same. All right. And then now we have what we call fair value. We have fair value. Fair value. We have a fair value. Fair value. Market value. All right. Normally, it's not easy for you to get, you know, as we get on with life, things become what you expect, expensive. The market will always have a higher value. The market outside there will always have a higher, but rarely will you get, in this case here, the fair value being lower. Rarely. In most of 80% of the CASNEB questions, fair value will always be higher. 80%. So in most questions in these past papers, we shall always get ourselves valuing upwards. Valuing upwards. So like in this question, what have they told us? I would want us to really understand here. What they have told us is that the net assets of Pamba Limited was, at acquisition of Pamba Limited, the only adjustment required to the identifiable net assets of Pamba Limited was for land, which had a carrying amount of shilling 625 million less than its fair value. So carrying value is less. Carrying value is less. Carrying value is less, meaning that fair value is higher. And that automatically points to what here? An upward revaluation, because the fair value is higher. You know, there are two things here: carrying value, fair value. When carrying value is less, it means that automatically fair value is higher. So this is an upward revaluation. So first of all, are we together up to there? Are we together up to there? This is an upward. So I shall leave this positive. It's an upward valuation. Why is it an upward valuation? Because fair value is more than the book value. So at the end of the day, we as accountants uplift the value to match the fair value, to match the market dictates here. So 625. So remember, fair value adjustment never changes. 625 here at reporting. Ordinary share capital, the same, both sides, 2,500. Share premium, 1,000, like that. So could you kindly do me a favor, leave alone this at reporting, because now I only want to calculate goodwill. Just give me this net assets figure at acquisition. Net assets, total net assets at acquisition. Is there somebody who could be having this figure? Total net assets at acquisition. Total net assets at acquisition. Is there anybody who would be having this figure? Total net assets at acquisition. So according to Willie, we have here, we have 76.25. 76.25, like leave alone this. 76 what here? 25 represents our net assets at what here? At acquisition. Net assets at acquisition. Net assets at acquisition, 76.25. So that is Esther there. We're saying we should repeat. Perhaps she was sleeping. Perhaps she was sleeping. You know, I'm joking. But this is really a straightforward thing. You are an accountant. You've gone and you're told that this particular asset here is worth 1,000. This is what it is carried in the books at 1,000. 1,000. But when you go and ask market participants outside there, market valuers, they tell you it should be 1,500. So then what does IFRS, in terms of fair valuation, need of us? What should we do? If the book value, what is being carried in the book about this pen is 1,000, and the market says it's 1,500, then we should revalue. And you see, if, for example, the market has a bigger value, if the market has a bigger, so we are revaluing upwards. We are revaluing upwards. So whenever the fair value, and I've told you, if, for example, you're confused in a question, in most of these questions, the fair value will always be higher. When the fair value is higher, then that is it. You leave this thing as what here? As positive. So it's a straightforward thing. Like now here they've told us in this question, at acquisition of Pamba Limited, the only adjustment required to the identifiable net assets of Pamba Limited was for land, which had a carrying amount. Carrying amount is the book value, what accountants have in their books, which had a carrying amount or book value of shilling 625 million less than its fair value. So the book value was lower compared to the fair value, right? So fair value is higher automatically as per this statement. So meaning that this is an upward revaluation. So thank you very much. So then having gotten this, leave this outside of this particular game, let's straight away go to goodwill computation. So now we are computing goodwill here. So goodwill. Goodwill really, this is full method. And if it's full method, we start straight away with consideration paid by the parent. So consideration paid by the parent. So the consideration paid by the parent, is there anybody who is able to see what the parent paid? Remember, you're told in note number 1, on 1st October 2020, Pamba Limited acquired an 80% equity interest in Pamba Limited when its retained earnings stood at 3,500. So they have not given us really the purchase consideration in the note. When they don't give us the purchase consideration in the note, straight away go to the financial statements. You'll be able to see where the parent is acknowledging its investment in the subsidiary. So like now here we are told, under the financial statements there, the statement of financial position and current assets, we can see investments in Pamba Limited. That is the consideration that was paid. So investment in Pamba Limited, I can see it is 8,500. Thank you very much. So consideration paid by the parent here, who is known as Pareto, is 8,500. But now remember that these fellas never bought 100% of Pamba. They bought 80%. And because you're using full method, we must account for 100%. So we must bring NCI. So come and add here NCI at acquisition. NCI at acquisition. NCI is the non-controlling interest. NCI is the non-controlling interest. NCI is a non-controlling interest. NCI is a non-controlling interest. So is there anybody who is able to see the consideration paid by NCI on acquisition, on acquisition, on acquisition, on acquisition? Is there anybody who is able to see the NCI on acquisition, the NCI? Yes, I'll be able to see it on note number 2. The group policy is to measure NCI at fair value. At the date of acquisition of Pamba Limited, the NCI, at the date of acquisition of Pamba Limited, the NCI had a fair value of 21.25. Thank you very much. 21.25. And then we shall come and the less net assets of Pamba, net assets of Pamba at acquisition. At acquisition. So net assets of Pamba at acquisition, we know they are worth 26.25. So we shall add these two, and then we less these net assets at acquisition to get what we call goodwill, to get what we call goodwill at acquisition, to get 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 goodwill at acquisition. So is there somebody who is able to give us this goodwill at acquisition? Really gives me a figure of 3,000. Thank you very much. 3,000. Thank you very much. 3,000. Remember, they only wanted us to give them, goodwill at acquisition. Goodwill at acquisition. They only wanted us to give them goodwill at acquisition. I'm so sure that all of us in an exam situation would have gotten these marks. Nobody in this particular room would have failed to pick all the marks for goodwill of Pamba, for goodwill of Pamba, for goodwill of Pamba. So that is it. So then can we kindly go to this other subsidiary? Same procedure. This is a subsidiary called who? Dafu. Same procedure. Evaluate its net assets at acquisition, and then you calculate goodwill. Each subsidiary that you have, like last semester, they gave us this kind of a similar question, really. 2 subsidiaries were required in this case here to calculate the net assets of each subsidiary vis-a-vis the goodwill of each subsidiary. Very easy. So what I'll do, I'll come in capital letters here and mention this one here called who? Dafu now. So now we are calculating the net assets of Dafu. Fortunately for Dafu, we don't have NCI. Fortunately for Dafu, we don't have NCI. Fortunately for Dafu, we do not have NCI. It's quite good for me. So now we are working on the net assets of Dafu. The net assets of Dafu. So we have the net assets of Dafu, this other subsidiary. If it was an associate, I'm not interested in net assets of associates, really. So we have here at acquisition. So we have at acquisition and at reporting. At acquisition and at reporting. At acquisition and at reporting. All right. All right. So of course we are looking at the net assets really. So net assets, ladies and gentlemen, this one is the simplest thing ever. I may forget about everything, but I can never forget the components of net assets, the equity elements. So I have the ordinary share capital. I have in this case here the premium, the share premium. I have what we call the share premium. I have what we call the share premium. So we have here what we call the share premium. The share premium. Of course, we have retained earnings. And then we have in this case here what we call the fair value adjustment. The fair value adjustments. So for Dafu Limited, is there anybody who is able to see these figures? For Dafu Limited, is there anybody who is able to see like the ordinary share capital of Dafu? Ordinary share. Thank you very much, Willie. Remember, you are writing this at reporting 2000 because you are getting this from the financial reports, end of the year financial reports. That's Dafu. Ordinary share capital. How about share premium? If you're able to see for Dafu, 500. Thank you very much. How about retained earnings for Dafu? Retained earnings for Dafu. Retained earnings for Dafu at reporting, 5750. 5750. Now from there, I'll be able to straight away look for any other information regarding Dafu's acquisition to know the retained earnings at acquisition. You're told in note number 3, Pareto Limited had acquired 100, note number 3. Pareto Limited had acquired 100% equity interest in Dafu Limited a number of years ago when its retained earnings amounted to 1750. So retained earnings at acquisition here was 1750. And then they are going ahead to tell us there, at acquisition, the fair value of the identifiable net assets of Dafu Limited approximated their carrying amounts. As in, when we went to do some valuation here, when we brought in a valuer, ladies and gentlemen, we did not see any differences between market values and carrying amounts. So there was no any revaluations done in this question, which makes me very happy because I can even come here and draw an emoji for this examiner. That now here for fair value adjustment, there is nothing. For fair value adjustment, there's nothing. Right. And then my work now will be to transfer. I know ordinary share capital doesn't change. 2000. I know share premium doesn't change. 500. So please come and give us these total assets at what year? Acquisition especially. Total net assets at acquisition. But please remember that don't do this for the examiner. This guy will slap you. If you try doing this for the examiner, this is just for our class here. But for your revision, if I were you, I would draw it. I would draw it because basically I'm trying to mean that the fair value adjustment is 0. It's 0. It's 0. Great. So I'm being given a figure of 47 what year? 4750. Is that okay? 4250. Thank you very much. 4250. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Now I'm interested in these net assets as at the date of acquisition. As at the date of acquisition. And once I get this, really, I know that this next step will be about goodwill of Dafu. Goodwill of Dafu. So you go ahead and give us goodwill of this one here called Dafu. And how do we do this? This is basically the consideration paid by the parent. Fortunately, we don't have an NCR. So come and give us consideration paid, give us consideration paid, give us consideration paid by the parent known as Pareto, by the parent known as Pareto, by the parent known as Pareto. So according to Willie, from the financial statements given there, investment in Dafu 5750. Where did you get 5750? Investment in Dafu. Yes, it's 5750. Thank you very much. 5750, like that. 5750. If you want to mention here and maybe please the examiner, you can also come and talk over add NCI at acquisition, but you draw something like this, and then you have it smiling from corner to corner, like that. Very important. It's 0. There's no need for you to do that. So simply come and tell us here, less net assets of Dafu at acquisition, which you guys have given me a figure of 4250, like that. So is there somebody who is able to give us the goodwill at acquisition now? Is there anybody who is able to give us goodwill at acquisition? 1500. So goodwill at acquisition is 1500. Thank you very much. Goodwill at acquisition is 1500. And now, ladies and gentlemen, please, could you kindly tell me if you got this question on exam, would have you gotten all those marks of goodwill for the 2 subsidiaries? Would have you gotten all those question marks, for goodwill? Yes, at least I have Wakio there. Yes, thank you very much also, Monica. Yes, but the most important thing is that now moving forward, should they give us this kind of a question moving forward, then we shall be able to get all the marks here for goodwill computation. So what I'll do, I'll be able to upload this particular question on my YouTube. This one I'm going to upload it on my YouTube account today. And please, once you get to my YouTube, ensure that you are able to subscribe. That's the most important thing you must get to uplift this Mwalimu. This Mwalimu needs a revaluation upwards. This Mwalimu needs a revaluation upwards. So when you subscribe, you're basically marketing me outside there to all your subscribers as well, or to all people who follow you online. So please ensure that you do that. Otherwise, good. I should be able to take you to another question that we shall be able to calculate goodwill.